Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and I am excited to bring you my interview with Jordan Okun from the Air Jordan podcast. He's also the author of LA Fadeaway. Everything that he does is a celebration of Los Angeles, and his podcast is awesome. That's why I wanted to talk to him. I want to get his background and then hear more about the podcast and more about what his thoughts are on the Los Angeles food scene, especially now that the COVID thing is going on. So that's why we talk. But his podcast celebrates food in the best way, and he has such a strong knowledge of food, and he has everyone, chefs, writers, food lovers on, and it's really worth it. I'll put links to all of his stuff below. He also has a novel called LA Fadeaway, which is a celebration of Los Angeles as well. So we get into his history, grew up in the Westwood area. We talk about Westwood back in the day and how it's changed, and then we talk about his journey to working at ICM. He worked in the mailroom, and then he was an assistant, so he did that kind of Hollywood route, but then he pivoted and changed to really what he loves to do. He still writes, but his podcast is such a focus, and it's such a rad podcast. And there is some colorful language in this, so if you have kids in the area, make sure their ears are covered during parts of this podcast. Just wanted to alert you. We talk about a lot in this interview and cover a lot of meat stuff. He has two sponsors for his podcast, Gold Belly as well as RC Provisions, and we go into depth about them, not because they sponsored this or they sponsored his podcast, just because it's interesting, especially with COVID going on. Gold Belly is huge. It's really important for people so that they can get food shipped directly to them. And RC Provisions, they supply to Langer's Deli. They supply the pastrami to Langer's. They supply the pastrami to Brent's Deli in Northridge, which is, if you haven't been and you're in the valley, you should go. They deliver. I've had it delivered recently. It is awesome. They also do chili for Tommy's, for Pink's. We talk about Flannery Beef, which he's not sponsored by, but Flannery Beef is awesome. So we talk about a lot of random stuff. But I really think you're going to enjoy this. I've kind of gone off the rails a little bit in this intro. I'm just excited to share this interview, and I think you'll get a better chance to know what he's like and what he's all about. And the Kevin's Barbecue Joints podcast is sponsored by Treaty Oak Distilling. They're available at treatyoak.com. You can see all the stuff they're doing. Alice's restaurant, still making food over there. You can get food to go. They have a menu online at treatyoak.com. They also have a huge list of grocery items, and you can order online for those. Amazing list. Like, I looked at it recently and I was kind of shocked. And they also have all their whiskeys as well as their gin and even maple syrup that's available online. So treatyoak.com, as well as AJ's Custom Cookers. AJ Ramirez, awesome guy, making amazing cookers, smokers, pits, whatever you want to call them. He does them, as well as tons of live fire stuff right now. Check him out at ajscustomcookers.com or AJ's Custom Cookers on all the social media. I can be found at Kevin's BBQ Joints on all social media. I also have a website at kevinsbbqjoints.com with links to all the YouTube and podcast stuff. There's over 180 interviews on it alone. So that's kind of a cool resource, something to do while you're stuck in isolation. Got a lot of cool stuff. Also got a lot of cool stories, photo essays that are barbecue related, butcher shop related, pit related. I think you really dig it. But at the end, thanks so much for listening. I super appreciate it. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're healthy. Let's get this through together so we can all go back and visit barbecue joints. This is a much different time than if we were talking like 2 months ago when we had really initially tried to do this.
I know. We're going to have a much different discussion now.
How are you doing right now?
I'm good. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. We're just staying in. We're just staying in. Eating good.
Do you do your podcast from your place? Can you do that?
I do. This is actually the room. This is the Sherman Oaks Food Building right here.
Oh, it is?
Listen to the podcast, but I often reference this
Yeah.
as the Sherman Oaks Food. There's no food in the Sherman Oaks Food Building, but this is it. This is where I record out of.
Okay. So is that like if I've seen like pictures of Bert coming to, is that where he's going? There?
Right. So we're both friends with Burt Bachman, Andy Wong,
Yes.
and yeah, they've both graced this room.
I talked to Andy a couple days after you had talked to him, so I'm holding off. I'm going to put that. I'm sure my conversation with him is it's much different than your conversation with him, but it would bleed a little bit. So next week I'm posting that because I think he has good insight into what's going on.
Oh, Andy has way better insight than me, so that's very smart of you. Anything I miss or fuck up, he will then correct.
Yeah, it's funny because I definitely feel like I'm on my toes with him because he has intense knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah, man. I try to only have guests on who are smarter than me, who are better than me.
Hence, that's why I have you, and I want to get into the nitty gritty of like what the hell's going on with the city and with especially meat related because that's like the focus of my on my podcast and stuff. But where
Yeah,
did you grow up in Los Angeles?
I did. I grew up in West Los Angeles, in Westwood to be exact.
What was that like growing up in Westwood? You're roughly my age. It must have been an interesting time then.
Yeah, I mean, Westwood was a lot different back then. I've talked a little bit about it on the podcast, but it wasn't as clean back then. It wasn't as nice back then. It was kind of rowdy back then. It was a little bit dangerous back then in the early 90s. So much so that infamously a Japanese tourist was murdered there in the early 90s, and that led the city to having to clean it up.
I think I remember that.
It had this young, kind of rambunctious energy to it where kids and youth from all over the city would come to Westwood Village. In the same way that Universal City Walk kind of is today, where there's a little bit of a dangerous element and a cool element there, but that all got extinguished after that tourist got murdered.
That tends to change, like
Especially predominantly white neighborhood where UCLA kids are just.
Isn't it kind of weird? This is kind of off topic, but I always thought that Westwood would turn out to be better. Like I think a lot of restaurants struggle in that area, and you would think that they would do well.
Yeah, no, restaurants, it's never been a good place for restaurants. The landlords all keep the rent too high.
Maybe that's it.
And so there's no more real mom and pops. I think the only mom and pop I could think of left there who've been there since the beginning is Dee Reese, the cookie shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they famously sell cookies for like nothing, 25 cents a cookie. For a cookie ice cream sandwich, it's like $1.25.
Yeah.
But they get such volume that somehow they're able to pay the rent. But there's no cool restaurants there, and there really never has been. There used to be a very old trattoria called Anna's, and that's where CPK is now, across from the Fox Theater.
Okay.
And that was very cool and mom and pop. In the days of Westwood, where the arcade was vibrant and a place to hang out, and a location that Bret Easton Ellis would write about often.
That's true.
But no hip writers would ever write about Westwood today.
No, and the Fox Theater you'll see every so often. I think it wasn't it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that there was a little nod to that. I think her Sharon Tate's movie was right.
She saw it across from the Fox.
Across from it, yeah.
That was at the Bruin, and that was a trip, seeing Westwood of the '60s in the hands of Tarantino. That was very cool. They had Stan's Donuts in the background. Didn't give Stan's the respect that Stan's really deserves. I have to talk to Quentin about that. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'll figure it out.
You don't have any old ICM connections that are connected to? I don't even know who he's representing. Doesn't he own He owns the theater on Santa Monica, right?
He owns the New Beverly, yeah.
And it's kind of cool too. He now has. I don't know if you know this, and this is again off topic. On the New Beverly website, they have reviews. He does reviews of old movies, like written reviews.
Oh, I hadn't seen that,
Yeah.
But he's done an incredible job with the New Beverly. The New Beverly's always been a trip. It's always been a blast. In the early '90s, you would get the colored calendars of the whole month, and I still do that, I believe. But back then, before it was online and before Tarantino really sunk his teeth into it. But yeah, he's done a great job there. I worked at ICM so long ago, they didn't let me near anyone remotely powerful. That's how I was at ICM. I got tossed out there real quick.
But you did the whole mailroom thing, right?
I did the mailroom. I was universally known as the worst assistant in the history of Hollywood. I was just not good. I did not care. I disrespected my bosses. I have apologized to all of them since then.
Why didn't you care? Or you didn't care because that wasn't something you wanted to do, or were you just that kind of guy?
I didn't want to be an agent. A lot of people go to the agency world because it's just a great launching pad for something in Hollywood.
For sure.
I wanted to be more creative, but being in a place like that where you were only working to advance other people's creative careers, it was horrible. And you had to live and breathe it 24/7. And I just felt like I was drowning underwater there. And that's how I started my writing career, because I started cathartically writing about the agency world in a way, and following a character and living through the eyes of a character who was enjoying himself. So I had to pretend like I was enjoying myself. And I started writing in the first person about a kid who was really good at his job at a talent agency, so that I would feel somewhat sane in that world. And that led to my first novel,
which is LA Fade Away.
Available wherever books are sold, which means Amazon, I guess.
Amazon.
Although there are now a few copies at Barnes and Noble's at the Grove.
Oh, cool.
If people ever go to the Grove ever again.
Yeah, when it reopens in September, you can go visit.
It reopens after the coronavirus. But a couple of the managers there apparently listened to the podcast and ordered extra copies of the book.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm sure you can go pick them up there.
A lot of people are aspiring writers. What was that like when you got that published? And did you do a little book tour at all, or was that exciting?
We had a party at Book Soup and a reading and a signing, so that was cool. But no, I mean, it was published by Simon & Schuster, but it was a relatively small release. The book served its purpose. It was an emotional kind of thing that I was dealing with, and I was able to deal with it through writing.
Did you go directly from ICM just to straight writing, or did you do other things in between?
I went from ICM to a production company where I was helping produce and develop one film. I did a film, I'm not going to name it. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. We had no control over the director, who turned out to be a drunk who decided to shoot his own movie every day instead of the script. Slowly. And it was at that job where I completed enough of the book to sell it. And then once I sold it, they paid me to write the rest of it. I sold it as a partial. So then I was able to quit that job and write full time.
And have you been writing full time since?
Yeah, so I'm a screenwriter as well. I've sold some television pilots. I'm always developing and whatnot, but it hasn't been easy. I haven't made a lot of sales, but I'm always trying. Being a struggling writer really led me into food writing, because I was trying to get the attention of Hollywood executives, and I know a lot of them are obsessed with food and read food media. So I thought if I could start writing in a cool kind of different voice in food media, that maybe that would grab their attention and lead them to more of my work.
That is interesting. And you do have a distinctive voice. And is that voice you, or is it partially a persona, or is it? Because it seems like it's like I could see it, but it's also like you don't give a shit sometimes. Like you'll say whatever, where a lot of people will hold back in the food world.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I want to sound different. I think that it's very hard to pinpoint the authorial voice in food media.
I agree.
Most articles sound the same to me. I can't figure out who's writing them. There's a few that I think stand out, stylistic. And so I was trying to do that in food media, and I was able to get away with it for a while. But eventually, unless you're writing for yourself, you're writing for editors who want you to sound like their publication. And that led me to starting the podcast so that I could literally get my voice out there, because I was trying to get it out there and writing articles, but the editing process kind of stripped me of that.
How long have you had the podcast?
It's only been a year and a half.
I thought it was like 2.5 years, but I guess time is just strange nowadays.
Yes, it is.
It feels like 2.5 years last month. When you started the podcast, was it the Air Jordan? Was that your nickname, Air Jordan?
No, I just thought that'd be a good name. I was always obsessed with Michael Jordan as a kid. Mm-hmm. I grew up a Laker fan, and in 1991, the Lakers played the Bulls in the finals and won game one. And we were just ecstatic and thinking we were going to win. And then Michael Jordan just came to life and whooped the fuck.
He got so angry. You could tell he was pissed. He was so mad.
I mean, they swept them after game one. And, having my name, Jordan, I became obsessed with Michael Jordan. Just seemed like the right name. I mean, even though podcasts aren't radio, it's the closest thing we have to it right now. And I'm going to write it out with the name. Hopefully I get big enough one day to where they sue me and I can't use it anymore. But
they haven't said anything?
They don't know me.
Yeah, who's
I don't know if I get big enough, maybe don't know me.
Maybe being on such a big podcast like mine will make you, will blow you up. So the 7 other people will hear you.
You know what? That's a good point. Goodbye, Kevin.
Exactly. Mine's mostly listened to in Chicago and in the North Carolina
All
area.
right.
So how did you get, at first, was it just you, or were you getting guests at the beginning? And were you in the food world? Like, if you were writing about it, were you friends with the number of the people that you're friends with now?
Yeah, so I was in food media long enough to where I was friends with people. I could get my friends on who were in the food world, who were chefs or writers and editors. And I'd been writing in the food world on and off for a year or maybe more before I started this. So it was an easy transition. And at the time, there were a couple of local food podcasts in LA that had stopped producing episodes. And so there was just a real void there that I thought filled.
And you did fill it for sure. Who was your first guest?
Well, I did a couple episodes that I called the rough draft episodes that my good friends all begged me to erase because it's just, it's like a dumbed down Eric Bogosian solo show of me just talking about food and my energy's all wrong. I was basically learning how to do a podcast for about 3 episodes. And for some reason, I put them up and out there in the world. And I think my first guest was my sometimes co-host, David Stassen.
Oh, yeah?
Who is a screenwriter, a television writer and a screenwriter, and one hell of an Instagrammer. Yeah, he wanted to come on. He loves food. He's from Chicago. And I'm much better with a guest. It's a much easier experience and conversation having people, you know?
No, I thought about, like, there's a lot of podcasters that have 2 people, and I've often thought, like, gosh, that sounds like, because there's days where you're not enthused, or you're just, you're just not there 100%, and it's nice because then you can feed off that energy, and they might ask questions that you wouldn't, so it does make sense. I feel very isolated. I've been self-isolating on this podcast for a long time.
Now, why don't you, so you're in LA, right?
Yeah. I'm in Woodland Hills.
Why do you refuse to get in the same room as someone? What is up with you?
It's because I knew this was coming, and I was just preparing myself.
You've been preparing for the coronavirus for years.
I'm either psychotic or psychic. I'm not sure, but I definitely, you know what, I get in the room with people. I've been with Bert, I've been with Andrew and Michelle, I've been with Andy. I've seen people in real life, but
you refuse to interview people in the same room.
To be honest, my mom is she's gone through 4 surgeries. She had knee replacement, her right knee replaced, then her left knee replaced, then her right shoulder and lumbar spinal fusion. And so I've been living by her to take care of her, and it just made sense. Like, I could be like, I'm in her apartment right now, and I could go right over and help her out. So I kind of move wherever's close. It's like weird.
Kevin, why do you have to make me feel bad now? Now I feel terrible. I'm going to send you and your mother some Goldbelly or some RC Provisions meat. Sponsors of Air Jordan. Everyone go check out Goldbelly. Promo code Air Jordan.
Are you sponsored by Goldbelly and RC Provision?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, and the Goldbelly, let's talk about that really quick with Shake Shack.
Yeah, Goldbelly just launched Shake Shack. It's a do-it-at-home kit.
That's killer.
So you get the exact Pat LaFrida blend of patties, 8 of them, 8 pieces of their American cheese, 8 Martin's potato buns, the Shack sauce. The Shack sauce has never been sold before. What better time to launch that? Everyone's home, everyone's cooking, everyone needs delivery. So it's a limited time thing. So if you're a fan of Shake Shack, you don't want to go out to Shake Shack, you want to figure out how to cook it at home. I mean,
promo code for that?
I believe you can use my promo code, Air Jordan. That one is very reasonably priced for Goldbelly, I gotta say.
Yeah, there's some, and I have a list. I've created like a master list of barbecue joints that sell online, to sell food to help them out during this crisis. And a number of them, probably like 15, 20 of them are on Goldbelly. Like, Goldbelly has a ton of barbecue spots.
Yeah, Goldbelly, barbecue on Goldbelly is a huge genre. Huge.
Yeah. That's crazy. And it's not inexpensive, but then again, you're getting it shipped to your house.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you can literally get a rack of ribs from Snow's Barbecue in your house. I mean, that's crazy. Just the opportunity to do that. And even if it tastes 90% there, we always find that it's worth it.
No, it's rad.
Just a fun experience, you know? I can't get to Kansas City, but I want some Jack Stacks.
Mm-hmm.
I have the burn ends within 2 days.
It's cheaper than a plane flight, and you don't have to like go there and come back. Like you actually are just stay home.
Yeah, I love being on that team.
That's great. And then RC Provisions, it's funny because I went and did some filming over at Langer's a while ago, like 3 years ago, and then somehow I kind of figured out that Langer's and then Brent's, because I love Brent's because it's close to me here, and then I'm like, okay, kind of figured out that they all use RC Provisions. Talk about them because even though they're a sponsor, but this isn't sponsored, but I'm curious about them.
Yeah, so RC Provisions is a meat purveyor. They've been in Burbank, California since 1958, and they partner with restaurants, with roadside shops, and a lot of delis, Jewish and Italian, to create their own unique blends, their own recipes. So, for instance, they of course do the celebrated pastrami from Langer's, and Matt Giamella, the head of RC Provisions, worked with Norm Langer for his exact butchering specifications and how exactly he wants his pastrami and corned beef treated and smoked. And let's say Brent's pastrami, which they're very famous for their black label pastrami, that comes out of RC Provisions as well. They're two entirely separate
Totally.
pastrami.
Yeah,
They
it's cigar
taste
specific.
yeah, they taste different, they look different, and it's because when you if you own a restaurant, you go to RC Provisions, you tell them exactly what you want, and they help develop with you.
And that's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of a lot of small places will crop out of this coronavirus situation. It's a lot of restaurants will die, and a lot of restaurants will hopefully come out of this, and there'll be new restaurants. And I know a lot of people would probably want to use them. So hopefully, if you are listening to this and you're interested, who is it? Matt over there?
Yeah, just call up RC Provisions. Matt Giamella's over there. He'll take care of you. They're also in the chili game. They do chili for Pinks, for who else am I allowed to
Oh yeah,
say?
I think you mentioned that in your show.
Original Tommy's.
Oh, they do, but you can't. Yeah, but you can't go like the people should know. You can't go to RC Provisions and get this from. They supply to the restaurants, not to the.
Yeah, well, they're known for their chili con carne base. So they sell a great base to these restaurants, and then the restaurants treat them with their own blends and spices to get their own chili.
Yeah, how did you hook up with RC Provisions? Did you know them from something, or just because of what you do?
Matt reached out to me. He had heard the
Oh,
podcast.
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I've been able to really monetize it, is just meeting people with food companies that understand the value of a niche podcast like this, that's speaking to a very specific community.
Yeah, and your audience is me and people like me. Yeah, definitely. Because and it's also too. I like when you do it in an episode where you'll have Bert or you'll have friends and you'll be sharing and trying things, and it feels like you're at your place, which you are. But it feels very casual, but actually it's a good vehicle to talk about products like that.
Yeah, look, they're very easy advertisers to have because I love their product so much. So yes, sometimes instead of just reading an advertisement, I'll just bring a number 19 to the table and share it with my guests. And we'll just talk about how great the number 19 is because of RC's Provisions work with the pastrami in that sandwich. And it's a slam dunk.
It's easy, and then you get the real reaction. And
Yeah, or for Goldbelly, I'll order Pat's cheesesteaks. They'll be overnighted from Philadelphia. I'll heat them up. They'll bring them in. It's easy work. My advertising make it very easy on me.
that's a better situation. It makes it a lot better because I don't have guests. I just have to I have Treaty Oak Distilling, so I could just drink it on my own, I guess. But it doesn't make sense if I'm just getting drunk while I talk to somebody else.
Well, it could make sense.
It could make sense. It probably makes more sense than what I'm doing half the time. But now, so explain what the Air Jordan podcast is for people that don't know.
It's a celebration of Los Angeles. That's really what it is, and that's what I've tried to do with all my work, with my novel, with my other writing, with my food writing, and now with the podcast, which is just celebrate Los Angeles. And the way we're doing it on Air Jordan is just talking to chefs, talking to fans of food in Los Angeles and what their favorite foods are and what their favorite restaurants are, and really just helping the industry.
So what's happening now? What do you think is going to happen? Like, I'm sure you've given a lot of thought, and What's your biggest surprise closing so far? Is there anything that's closed that you are surprised? Like there's like Nate Now's is going to come back, right? Aren't they going to come back?
You know, no one really knows what's going to happen with Nate Now, really. They've just closed. They basically they walked back their first press release and have clarified it because it was not clear, their first press release, and then they put out a second press release the day after their first one saying that they hope to reopen after this whole COVID affair, but they're going to have to open in a new location, and that's not going to be easy. Look, the reason delis are dying across the country is because they're really tough businesses. They have huge overhead. The check averages are low. Predominantly unhealthy food in a world that's getting healthier. So it's hard. And the owners who were smart back in the day, who were able to buy the buildings that they're in, a lot of those delis still remain. In Nate Now's case, the original owner's grandkids, they were done. And they sold the building. And we'll see if this new restaurant group keeps it alive. There's no guarantees, you know.
That's true.
Other than that, there's been no announcement of permanent closures because of the coronavirus in the restaurant world. But there are many restaurants that have decided it's safer and possibly make more economical sense to not run the takeout and delivery game that a lot of people are hustling to do right now.
I know, and that's not necessarily cost effective, I think, for a restaurant. It takes a certain type of business to make that work. One that I think that survived maybe mainly on that to begin with, I think. I find it difficult for a restaurant to transition with the high rent.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously I'm not privy to people's books, but there are a lot of restaurants selling a whole lot of now and selling out their food right now. Obviously, they can't be doing as well as they were, but some businesses are thriving right now.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
Some restaurants are figuring it out enough to where they will survive this. Restaurants that were built for delivery and takeout before this. Mm-hmm. I've talked with a few restaurateurs that were really early in the Postmates and Uber Eats game, and they had negotiated and have grandfathered in rates that are way lower than what new people are having to pay right now.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes sense.
And so they're finding a way. Restaurants that were predominantly or strictly all dine-in that have had to quickly adapt. I think Dave Barron at Pajoli and Dialogue is a really good example of this. You know, one incredibly high-end restaurant and Dialogue that was, you know, with the wine pairing of almost $500 per person.
Yes.
You know, Michelin star shit. And he owns a little bit more casual, but still an extremely nice restaurant, an expensive restaurant called Pajoli, which is his take on a bistro. He did not do takeout or delivery in either of those, and did not do casual food in either, especially Pajoli. And he's learning now, and he's kind of adapted. And he thought he could do his menu at first and at Pajoli and figured out that he could not, that people would want different stuff. So now he has a cheeseburger. Now he has a fried chicken sandwich. And I was talking to him the other day.
That's so interesting.
Because he's also preparing menus at his higher end restaurant, Dialogue, and he's doing a short rib Wellington.
Huh.
And people cannot get enough of this fucking thing.
See, that's a cool idea.
He's selling more short rib beef Wellingtons, you know, and his Bird Box cheesecake than he knows what to do with. He can't keep up. He's had to increase the demand. So there's a really nice community movement here of supporting the chefs. Mm-hmm. Everyone has read enough now, and scientists have proven that eating out is very safe. Mm-hmm. That the risk of contracting the virus through even the packaging and definitely the food is incredibly low. Mm-hmm. And everyone's heart is breaking for these chefs and these restaurants. The restaurant game was hard enough without them having to go through this.
No, I know.
And so people are ordering their asses off.
And people are getting a lot of delivery, and I think it's going to be interesting, like who you're talking about. I think that when things the dust settles for this, it'll be interesting to see if that becomes a concept, a separate concept, like a takeout concept or something that kind of works. Because I think that there's going to be restaurants that have that things will be born out of this, out of a necessity to stay in business. I'm not sure if he'd be able to keep his entire staff right now working for that, but at least when things do settle, which they should, it's interesting to see what people have done, and it's because space is so different than I deal with a lot of restaurants in Texas, and they've been able to take parking lots and make drive through and like a separate thing. Well, we don't necessarily have the space to do that for a lot of places. They could do curbside.
Yeah, menus. We saw a shift in menus after the 2008 financial disaster, right? And people were going to restaurants less, and there was a real move into comfort food from there because that's what people wanted to be eating. And so you're right. The industry is going to change from this in ways, and restaurants are going to figure out new items. I know that, one of my favorite restaurants right now is Antico in kind of like the border of Koreatown and Larchmont Village.
Okay.
They're known for their ice cream, and they're doing now their ice cream to go in pints, and people are losing their minds about this ice cream.
That's so
And it's somewhere between ice cream and gelato and soft serve. No one really knows what the fuck to call it except delicious. and I could see them selling that forever now.
Is there a list anywhere you think of people doing things that are like that? I don't know. It'd just be nice to have some kind of resource for people to be able to. I don't know. Maybe off air, I can contact you and I can put together some sort of small list that to help people find things like that, because that's a gem and that's something that's exciting in a time that's so depressing and when the news is always just worse and harebrained and strange. It would be nice to have things to search out.
Yeah, well, a lot of food people, including me, are posting as much as they can on their Instagram stories about restaurants that are still open, that are doing takeout and delivery, and giving as much info as possible. And I've saved all those in my highlights. They're called F Corone,
Okay.
right? Because I refer to this period as the fuck a Corone period. And so in my Instagram page, under the F Corone story highlights, I've saved all information about who's offering what, if they're offering pay over the phone, special food specials, everything going on right now in the LA food world.
Nice. And I was going to I'm going to have links. I'm going to have a companion blog piece with this with all your information. So I'll have a link specifically, obviously, to your Instagram. And I think I've been screenshotting your story because it is so helpful. And I've been screenshotting it and because, even like Laurie's is doing, it's so bizarre what's going on. It's amazing.
I talked to a good friend the other night. He got Laurie's for his entire family, 5 people, happier with the meal. And you would never think to get Larry's at home. They had not done takeout before, but everyone's got to adjust. And so, it doesn't come with the waitress who's gonna spin a salad and put the salad dressing up all over her head. But you can get someone in your family to do that and just have fun with it,
Why do you out that? I've told like 3 people that it comes with like your own little mini spinning salad bowl, and people actually believe me. And this actually today, April Fool's Day, would be the perfect day to have. A lot of restaurants could mess with people's minds, but I don't think that would be. It's not appropriate right now.
But it does come with the salad. It does come with the salad, and the salad's great at Larry's.
And they do to go, because I went there once and we got some food for somebody like my aunt or something, and we got food to go, and they had the packaging, so they were already one step there.
Oh, okay. Maybe that was just for leftovers.
It was actually like they did. It was
they had a to-go menu?
It wasn't a to-go menu, but it was like if you were there and you wanted to add on an extra to-go. Gotcha. I don't think it was something they wanted people to know about.
I think that before this virus, restaurants just didn't have the operations for it. They didn't have the manpower for it. But it's obviously a great revenue stream, and it's a crucial one right now, and it's the only one right now. And so I think you're going to see a lot of these restaurants keep this in place. I think you're going to see a lot of restaurants who weren't doing takeout and delivery before the corona. You're going to see them once it's all over and we're allowed to dine in restaurants again, hopefully later this year. You're going to see a lot of these restaurants keeping that in place as the extra revenue stream.
Definitely. Let's talk about pretend like the world was a month ago or a month and a half ago. What are your favorite spots and meat wise that you loved back then that you hope that are open when this is all over?
Meat wise?
Yeah, where would you go for like?
Right. You're the meat podcast, right?
Yeah,
okay,
I focus on barbecue and meat, but I like food
yeah.
in general. I love food and I love the food world, but it's also it's more like barbecue. Like, are you obviously you're friends with Bert, so you like Slab?
I'm friends with Bert, so Slab is obviously a place that I like to go and eat and get ribs and barbecue. And his sandwiches are great too. And actually, he just started doing. I don't know if he's doing them now for takeout and delivery. He may be, but once it's all over, I really hope they keep doing tacos because he was doing brisket and pulled pork tacos that were fantastic. Moo's Craft is top notch in LA as far as barbecue goes. That's only available once a week, but now they're doing takeout and delivery, so it's great. I mean, you don't have to be at Smorgasbord, which is closed down now, to have Moo's Craft. I love APL. I think Adam Perry Lang is a treasure to Los Angeles. His daytime barbecue menu is incredible, including his chili dogs. But I love dry-aged steak, and nowhere does it better in Los Angeles right now than APL. And it gets up there. It gets funky. You may go there and he may have a 365-day piece of meat, and he may have a 500-day.
He's
and you may think that's too funky.
For a lot of people, it is. I think past 120 days, it gets pretty funky.
I'm telling you, Kevin, it's not.
I don't think I've had anything past 120.
The way this man serves it, it's special.
He knows what he's doing. He does know what he's doing. Did he open his other restaurant in Yountville?
Yeah, he did. He has a restaurant up in Napa too. I mean, look, Keith Spacca's a very singular meat experience in Los Angeles.
Can you talk a little bit about that, because I don't think that's not on a lot of people's radar, especially people that are visiting from other places.
Yeah, so they serve a Fiorentina bistecca, and it is cooked in ways that is popular in certain regions of Italy, where it's grilled over a fire, it's sliced super rare, it's served with olive oil instead of butter, and it's just a very singular experience. Huge cuts, usually only 2. It's very expensive.
And it's right around the corner from Mozza, people don't know.
Yeah, it's in the Mozzaplex. So
in that whole plex, yeah.
Coned by Nancy Silverton. This is how you can eat steak in Florence. You know, it's grilled over an open fire. It's served incredibly rare and sliced, and it's an experience unlike any other. They use Flannery beef, which is pretty much my favorite meat purveyor. And it's just a special experience.
They have fantastic meat, and it's also so then, like, prime rib wise, are you a Lari's guy, or do you have other places you go to?
You know, I actually don't love prime rib, so I'm not a Lari's guy at all. I will go to Lari's with friends who love it and really concentrate on like the Yorkshire pudding.
So you're like, you want double Yorkshire pudding?
I'm a steak guy. I love a steak, so. I love a steak. Hopefully it's dry aged, but if it's not, we can go to town.
And are you cooking steak at home?
Yeah, I mean, I am more and more, and especially during the quarantine, I have been. I talked about Antico steak before. I'm sorry, their ice cream before, but they do an incredible skirt steak with a salsa verde on it. The restaurant for dine-in only. They're not doing it now for their takeout. But right now they're doing like 20-day Creekstone, like dry aged strips.
Oh wow!
And so I got one the other night, and it was great. Cast iron, little olive oil, a little butter, some rosemary. I'm a Flannery guy.
You're a Flannery guy? Oh, is Flannery? Are they a sponsor of your?
No. I just literally give them free sponsorship at all times.
I think I follow them on Instagram because of you.
I'm just a huge fan.
You're a food guy.
I can eat a burger or a steak for every meal. I'm an eater.
What do you think about the Sherman Oaks food scene, the Sherman Oaks and Studio City? Do you?
So, it's been hurting. We're great for sushi. Bert used to run his underground Trudy's out of Studio City,
Mm-hmm.
and that was probably the best thing happening in Studio City.
Definitely.
Now he's over in West Hollywood at Slab. The food scene in the Valley, especially where we live, is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of great options other than sushi. We have a petit trois that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And their steak frite is amazing. It's the only time I'll ever eat a fillet. I can't waste time with a fillet.
No, you know what? It's my least favorite cut. But if I'm somewhere for a celebration at Ruth's Chris, I'll eat a fillet there just because I like the sizzle and it could.
Everyone loves the petit fillet or the bone-in fillet at Mastro's. Everyone loves I can't deal with a fillet except petit trois. And by the way, it's doused in like a peppercorn cream, but it's like the best sauce I've ever eaten. So I could eat anything under that sauce, but a filet will do.
Is that the same sauce on the burger?
No, that's different.
That's a different. I haven't had the burger there, but I've seen pictures of it.
That's like a red wine sauce with a foie gras. That's a whole other thing. Or it used to be foie. Now
Are they trying to do to go there?
they were doing it for a little bit, and they're one of the restaurants that just kind of said we're going to sit it out until this whole thing clears. So people were getting burger to go, and they were doing to go before the coronavirus.
I've never heard of anybody getting it to go, but I can imagine that it makes sense. But it's weird. It is for me. I've always had a hard time wrapping my head around the Valley food scene, the food scene in the Valley, because I always felt like it should be better. And so many people that eat food on the West Side or over the hill, they live here, and so you would think that there would be like a lot of comfort food places, and just I don't know, maybe it's rent, maybe it boils down to that.
You're right, and part of the reason you're right is because of the rent. You would think that more restaurants, hipper restaurants that can take a chance,
Mm-hmm.
would open here because the rent is less. But it's so horrible to live here, Kevin. It's so not hip that even the low rent can't get good restaurants here. But we got Petit Trois. There's rumors of one of the best restaurants in the city that already has a couple of locations. That's the clue. That they're going to be opening here now soon. They have a space actually.
Oh, really?
And hopefully Corona doesn't throw a wrench in that. And there's a huge development happening at the Sportsman's Lounge with a bunch of great restaurants going to be opening there too. So I do think in the next year or so, 2020, late 2021 on, I think the Valley is going to be much better culinarily.
What are they doing over there? Because I know they've had some kind of pop-up-y things like over the years there, but did someone buy the Sportsman's Lodge and then?
Yeah, so they're redeveloping over half of it, and it's going to be like an outdoor mall of sorts with a bunch of great restaurants. I know that like an Equinox is going there, an Erewhon is going to be opening there. Now, by the way, this is all pre-Corona.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
I don't know what Corona does to all these plans, but the Valley is going to get much better to live in as a foodie very soon.
Yeah, but the Valley is kind of sad. I've lived back and forth in the Valley my whole life, and it's kind of. I wish because culturally, I just wish there was a little bit more going on.
Culturally, it's a coma. It's in a coma. But look, a lot of great restaurants. Brent's Deli in Northridge.
That's a gem.
Is our second best deli in Los Angeles, and it's damn close to Langer's. It doesn't get level with Langer's, but it comes damn close. It's a great deli. Bill's Burgers is a classic. Anytime you want a cheeseburger, you go to Bill's.
What are the hours there? It's not now, but what were they? Like sporadic, right? Or the kind of just like it was weird hours.
I think they're open till about 3 or 4 every day.
But I thought there was like 2 days a week that I don't know.
Bill doesn't give a shit, and you know what? You just got to deal with it.
Yeah, and
you just got to deal.
It is, but that's a gem. That's also a cool little experience to go to.
Yeah, Bill's is great. One of my favorite Mexican places, Las Fuentes, is out in Reseda. Dan's Super Subs.
I love
You know,
love Dan. And you know what's funny is I've one of the brothers. He still, like, from high school. He still knows my name every time I come in, no matter if I have a beard, no beard, however I look. Hey, Kevin.
it is that kind of place. It is that kind of place. Baroni's on Oxnard, not the one in Woodland Hills, the one on Oxnard. In basically it's Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks. That's the best pizza I think in LA. That's my favorite pizza. The Valley has a lot of great stuff. We have great Israeli food, but it's about to get much better.
Or I guess, and it's very spread out, and so that's why it's not. There's no specific area where it's like a Chicago or a New York. Like, I always felt like there could be some kind of little area.
I just think the Valley has always had such a stigma. You talk about Valley girl, she's just some idiot. There's always been a stigma about the Valley that it's the lesser side of Los Angeles. Great restaurants, hip restaurants have never really found their way here. But that's changing.
That is changing, yeah. And maybe it also is. It's because people would live here because it was cheaper, work over the hill, and then come back and go to bed and start it all over again. On the weekends, they wanted breakfast and to hike and do stuff and random things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always wondered. But yeah, like you said, like, those are gems that I've never talked to him about on my show, is Dan's Super Subs and Bill's and those places. There are some really great places. What's coming up then for your show? Are you going to be reaching out to restaurateurs and kind of getting their take on what's going on, or?
Yeah, so we just had Jerry Greenberg on, who co-owns Sugarfish, Hi Ho Wovo, and Kazunori. Jerry has recently pledged to keep, or try to keep, as of now, all 600 of his employees working through this.
I saw that. That's amazing.
And just really kind of understanding what the first 2 weeks of this whole thing was like for an owner and operator, and how owners and operators and chefs can move forward and make their restaurants and their food experiences as safe and comfortable as possible. You know, I'm definitely going to be dealing with the closing of Nate and Al very soon, and having some guests to talk about that. And I'm really figuring out how to deal with the days of Corona. You know, my show, I try to have as much fun as possible. And there's not much fun to be had right now.
No.
There's a lot of heartbreak going on. And so I'm figuring out how to deal with that. I do think that hearing as many stories as possible and continuing to promote these restaurants that are staying open is important, and obviously a goal of mine. So I'm going to figure out how to do that. And basically it's just getting the message out that takeout and delivery is very safe, especially if you're halfway smart about it. You know, if you want, throw away the bags that it comes in, throw away the packaging, put it on your own plates, heat it up a little bit, whatever makes you most comfortable. But I want to get the message across that it's safe, that we need to support this community in any way that you can. If you could do takeout or delivery once a week, great. If you can buy gift cards for your favorite restaurants and hold them to use them for later, even better. I've talked to many chefs and restaurateurs. That's kind of what they prefer right now. I mean, they want you eating. You know, Jerry Greenberg wants you eating in all his restaurants, in Sugarfish's, Hi-O's, or getting takeout and delivery. But I think a lot of restaurants would love the infusion of cash from gift card purchases. So, and everyone can only do so much, you know, so do what you can, or feed, you know, try to get some food to medical workers or the frontline workers, however you can interact with the LA food world and help.
Exactly.
That's kind of what I'm trying to get across, and hopefully we can get across in an Air Jordan kind of way, which is, you know, just to have fun and keep celebrating LA, even though they're going through a bit of a disaster.
No, and I appreciate that. I appreciate what you do and the restaurants that you highlight, and I appreciate that last little nugget that you said, because that's how we're going to get through that, and how these restaurants that you love so much are going to get through this. There's no other way than gift cards or takeout or delivery. There's no other way. They need to get the funds somehow, and if you want to, at the end of this, be able to go back to those places, you have to support them in some way. And are there any organizations that you know of for Los Angeles restaurants or for employees?
Yeah, so a couple of great ones. Well, one, the Welcome Kitchen, I believe it is Jose Andreas's. Phil Rosenthal recently made a huge donation to them and said that he would match up to a very large amount. So
Wow.
you can look into that. That helps feed. James Beard is raising money for the restaurant industry. California Hospitality on Instagram.
Okay.
You look at them. There's a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to put together a master list for the barbecue side as well as restaurant side. So I'll include those, and then I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to create as many. I just relaunched my website, so I have a platform now that I can kind of try to promote these
Yeah.
places in
And
any way.
again, I've tried to save as much as possible in my F Corone IG story highlights. So a lot of charity talk is in there too. There's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah.
But honestly, order takeout, order delivery, it's safe, buy gift cards, do as much as you can to support your favorite restaurants because this is dire and they may not be there.
Yeah.
That would be a shame.
Yeah, and it's amazing that I always wondered what it would be like if something like this happened, and to actually be living through it, it's really surreal. It's bizarre.
You thought about stuff like this happening?
Well, when I saw Contagion, or I've seen movies where a plague or something stupid like a zombie thing, like I always thought, like what if some kind of virus? Like I always thought, like what if something, and like when they were talking about not Ebola, I think when Ebola was big, I kept thinking if something that could survive longer, like Ebola, the reason why it never really infiltrated everything is because people would die too quickly. They couldn't pass it on. But with this stupid thing, you could pass it on without even knowing you have it. And
Right.
that's like this is an ideal, I'm sure, like, if it's something that will wipe us all out. But Jesus Christ, like it's amazing how quickly it's spread, and I'm scared about. I've seen so many pictures of people hanging out even a week ago, and I'm thinking, and people have even asked me, like, you want to come like to my house for dinner? I'm like, no, I'm not coming.
People have asked you that recently?
Like a week ago, yeah, a week ago.
Look, LA's done a great job. Our mayor and our
Oh
governor
gosh,
got this thing better than anybody.
yeah,
And we are flattening the curve, and everyone's just got to stay in and keep doing it. Thank God they closed Runyon. These people, Runyon's not that good. Stay off Runyon. It's not that appealing.
no,
The view will be there after Corona. Just calm down, stay home,
yes,
walk up your stairs, walk around your block. The restaurant industry needs us to stay quarantined so they could get back quicker. So I hope everyone.
exactly. Well, thank you, Jordan, for everything you do and for taking the time for this. And yeah, I hope to see you in person eating at a restaurant. We'll eat at a restaurant someday when this is all over.
We'll go to Brothers Sushi with Andy, okay?
Definitely, yeah, that's on the list. Yeah, when I was talking to, I've been.
You told me you guys were going to go. I haven't been yet, so I need to go.
And it's actually like so close to me. Yeah, no, I want to promote Steve, and they actually Brother Sushi has a great to go offer right now.
There it is. All right, go get
They have a great bento box or something. It's something that's one, and their food is fantastic. So yeah, definitely, the three of us will meet there. So cool. We'll enjoy your day, enjoy your week, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thanks. Take it easy.